Let's get to our top stories and then get to Jeffrey. Voters heard very different messages from the candidates over the final weekend of campaigning, with Donald Trump delivering dark and divisive remarks over several rallies.
Do you want to lose your life savings because we put a weak and foolish woman in the White House? No. Do you want to lose your job and maybe your house and your pension because Kamala has the economic understanding of a child? Never once did she call. Never once did she visit. She visited one time in an area that had nothing to do. She liked it. But essentially, never once did she visit. If she wins, you will live the rest of your life as second-class citizens in your own country. That's what's happening. We had the safest border in the history of our country the day that I left. I shouldn't have left. I mean, honestly, because we did so well. I have a piece of glass over here, and I don't have a piece of glass there. And I have this piece of glass here. But all we have really over here is the fake news, right? And to get me, somebody would have to shoot through the fake news. And I don't mind that so much, because I don't mind that.
They laugh and they applaud, John, at him saying they'd have to shoot the press, and I don't mind that. And that's
never understand.
In 2024, that is a laughing and applause line at a political rally. Just like in 2023, Donald Trump mocking Paul Pelosi for being bludgeoned nearly to death and making jokes about that. And that was applause line. I will ask the question that I think is a fair question to ask. Who raised these people?
Yeah.
Because they were not raised by anybody in my neighborhoods that I grew up, any middle-class neighborhoods that I grew up in. These people were not there. They were not raised. I mean, they weren't in the classes I went to growing up. In elementary or middle or high school or college. They just weren't there. That wasn't the America I grew up in, where people would laugh at the idea of people of press getting shot. Like, everybody would sit around like, what? What's he talking about? Or again,
laughing at the Puerto Rican
other
joke.
things, laughing at the Puerto Rican joke.
My God,
that Puerto Ricans are a pile of trash. Are laughing at a 83-year-old man being bludgeoned nearly to death. That's an applause line. That's a laugh line. Again, who are these people? Where are they coming from? And who raised them? And how did Donald Trump twist their point of view so much in 9 years that the brutalization of an 83-year-old man is something to laugh about, or the shooting of press members is an applause line?
Yeah, laughs and cheers when Trump suggested the press should be shot. And my friend, the legendary photographer at the AP, Evan Vucci, who's traveling with the Trump campaign here, says that as each rally goes on, particularly last night in Georgia, the threats from the crowd to the press, they're there in the arena, only growing. They're really concerned there about the security situation. And that's part of the closing argument, Jeffrey Goldberg, that Donald Trump is seemingly making. It is dark, it is dangerous, it portends violence. And it's a candidate who yesterday had alternately seemed furious and exhausted. But this is the last message he's leaving with the American voters.
Well, we're talking about someone who admires certain aspects of Hitler's leadership qualities, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. I've been concerned, obviously, on behalf of my colleagues in the press, more and more in the last couple of weeks. And I was thinking, that's just what we just saw was on Sunday, right? It was over the weekend. As the pressure increases on Donald Trump, as the fear of losing becomes more materialized, he decompensates further. He does not do well, obviously, under pressure. And so God only knows what we're going to be hearing from him tomorrow and then Wednesday and onward, assuming he challenges whatever, if he loses the race, assuming he challenges the results. It's just when you think you've reached ugly, true ugly, it kind of goes deeper.
And he's already talking about conspiracy theories about the election. We knew he would do that. That's going to be a big part of his case, should he lose, of course. But I'll say again, the state local officials in states across the country are systematically debunking these. I'm thinking about that lie about Haitian immigrants voting repeatedly in the state of Georgia. The Secretary of State, his office, Gabe Sterling, Secretary Raffensperger coming out and saying this is a lie. It's Russian disinformation. Anyone amplifying that now knows this. So they're going to have to be playing whack-a-mole to put down these conspiracy theories. Meanwhile,